Hey, wrestling fans. Welcome to another episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, October 29th, 2020. I am your host, Lance Brock, as always. Just a second. There, that's a little better, hopefully. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in, whether you're listening to the audio podcast or you're watching the YouTube stream right now. Thanks, I appreciate it. It means a lot. And right off the bat, got the 2020 Pro Wrestling Tees Halloween t-shirt on. I know it's only a couple days till Halloween, but you can still get it anyway. Wear it after Halloween. Celebrate after the October 31st. Wrestling Tees. Unfortunately, still not a sponsor of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, but I would love it if they were, though. Great website. I have bought in many things from ProWrestlingTees.com, such as these two things: the Fig Story, the comic book by Brian Myers and Matt Cardona, and Luchaverse, featuring Rey Mysterio and Conan in there, and Penta Zero. Have not read it yet, but I plan on reading that soon. And all right, now let's get to 360 Wrestling Fanatic because we have a lot to talk about tonight. We got WWE Monday Night Raw. We got AEW Dark, Impact Wrestling, Dynamite, and NXT Halloween Havoc. They brought it back as the special last night on USA, which aired against Dynamite. I watched that actually just a little bit ago because I said this on the podcast before. I do not watch NXT on Wednesdays. I watch Dynamite live and then watch NXT at another time. And normally I don't talk about NXT on the podcast, but tonight I will be discussing Halloween Havoc because a special, obviously, special event from NXT. And growing up, WCW was always one of my favorite WCW pay-per-views when I was younger back in the day, but that was when I was younger. So that was a long time ago. I'm an old man now. But, alright, let's start off today's episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Unfortunately, I do have to start off with some sad news. Yesterday, the passing of Tracy Smothers. Very sad, only 58 years old. He has had cancer for a while. He's been in kind of poor health. I remember when I was a kid, was a big fan of him and Steve Armstrong as the Southern Boys. Remember, used to hear Jim Ross, Gordon Soley, call them those wild eyed Southern Boys. Was a big fan of theirs. Probably maybe 6 or 7 years old, I think I might have been. And then he went on to WWF, wrestled as Freddie Joe Floyd, wrestled in Jim Cornette's Smoky Mountain Wrestling, had a run in ECW, has made some appearances for Impact, AIW, and a lot of other indies across the world. Tracy Smothers, he'll definitely be missed in the world of pro wrestling. Now, let's move on to Monday. Monday Night Raw, live from the WWE Thunderdome, which apparently, I think I mentioned this. Monday was the last episode, I believe. Uh, I discussed it a little bit Monday. There's been some reports lately about them moving to a different arena other than the Amway Center. Don't know for sure if they are moving just yet, but probably soon. Don't know which arena they're moving to, but probably. And let's get on to Raw. Got my notes ready. Oh, I thought I had them ready. Just a second. All right. Monday Night Raw. I'm going to try to make these recaps pretty quick since we got a lot to talk about. Let's see, we got Drew McIntyre, the former WWE champion, in the ring, and he says no excuses, just one promise. He will be WWE champion again. And then he is interrupted by the new Mr. Money in the Bank, The Miz, and John Morrison. They disrespect him. McIntyre headbutts them. And then The Miz goes after the injured knee from the night before. And McIntyre says he has a good idea. He's going to run by the management. He says it's going to be a bad night for Miz and Morrison. And next up, we have a qualifying match to be on the Raw Men's Survivor Series team. And it is the phenomenal AJ Styles with his new associate taking on Jeff Hardy. I thought this was a pretty good match here to start off the show. Two of my favorites. Styles wins with the phenomenal forearm. He is now a part of Team Raw heading into the Survivor Series. And after the match, Elias attacks Hardy again. And then next up, tag team action. Elias, Akira Tozawa, and Drew Gulak versus the Lucha House Party. So, to correct myself a bit, 6-man tag team action, actually. And we have R-Truth is ringside. And then everybody tries to go after the 24/7 championship. While that's going on, Lindsay Dorado picks up the win for the Lucha House Party in the ring. And then we have the Firefly Funhouse next. And Alexa Bliss brings tea, and she gives them the Ramblin' Rabbit. And he says it's delicious, and he asks what's in it. And she says strawberry, peach, sugar, and a secret ingredient, which she says is arsenic. And then there's, once again, Rambling Rabbit dies, or at least it looks like he is. Bray Wyatt comes in, and then we see Rambling Rabbit, come back to life once again. He tells his wife he's coming home, and then Bray Wyatt smashes him with something. And we got another qualifying match for the Survivor Series here. It is Elias taking on Keith Lee. And Elias looking pretty good in the match. And we hear Jeff Hardy's music, which distracts Elias. And then Lee takes advantage of the distraction, pick up the win to make it onto the Raw Survivor Series team. He will be representing Monday Night Raw at the Survivor Series. And then we see Jeff Hardy after the match, and he hits Elias with the guitar. Backstage, Charlie is with Randy Orton, the new WWE champion. And next up, we have an 8-man elimination tag match. The Hurt Business taking on Retribution. And the Hurt Business. Well, first let's just start saying MVP is eliminated, and then Benjamin. There's some countouts here, and Benjamin Alexander versus Ali is the final three, and Ali gets DQ'd. And man, they've given up on Retribution pretty fast. I don't know why, but that push definitely didn't last long, that's for sure. And next up, we have Drew McIntyre versus The Miz. McIntyre gets the win against The Miz with the Claymore. And next, we see Adam Pearce and Pat Buck in the ring. And they introduce Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Mandy Rose, and Dana Brooke. They will be on the Raw women's team for the Survivor Series. And it's announced that Lana, Lacey Evans, Peyton Royce, and Nikki Cross will take place in a four-way match to determine the final member. Lana wins this match and to join Team Raw once again for, I think it's maybe the 6th week in a row. Nia Jax at ringside first gives her a hug, and then once again, of course, has to put her through the announce table. This is an ongoing tradition, routine thing now on Monday Night Raw. Nia Jax just has to put Lana through the table. And Sheamus defeats Matt Riddle to be on Team Raw, the men's team, which got a little news to talk about Mr. Matt Riddle a little later on in the podcast. But for now, we got the moment of bliss with guest, the new WWE champion, Randy Orton. And Orton asks, where is the Fiend? And Drew McIntyre appears, and him and Orton brawl. And then the Fiend and McIntyre and Orton continue to brawl around ringside. And that was Monday Night Raw from this past Monday night. Now let's move on to Tuesday. Talk about AEW Dark. The commentators, as usual, Excalibur and Taz. And for the first couple of matches, they are joined by a boxer, Anthony Ogogo, who, I'll be honest, I don't know who it is, but he was actually pretty good on commentary, I thought, for these two matches that he was here for. And tag team action kicks off Dark. Top Flight versus the Dark Order, Stu Grayson and Evil Uno. Absolute Ricky Starks defeats VSK. Matt Sydal defeated Lee Johnson. And next up, Miro is on commentary for the next couple matches. The AEW Women's Champion Hikaru Shida defeated Layla Hirsch. The Jurassic Express, Luke, Marco Stunt, and Jungle Boy defeat Jersey Muscle and Danny Limelight, or also Luchasaurus 2, 6-man tag. Sorry about that. Tag team action up next. The Hybrid 2 versus SCU, SoCal Uncensored. Very good match here. I enjoy this match. I definitely recommend this one match you should check out if you did not see it. Frankie Kazarian pins Jack Evans to score the win for SCU. And Brandy Rhodes is out next to be on commentary. as Catalina Perez takes on Anna Jay from the Dark Order. Jay gets the win via submission. Next up, no countouts, no DQs. Falls count anywhere. There must be a winner. Peter Avalon versus Brandon Cutler. This finally comes ahead. They've been feuding for a while now, Dark and being the lead. And Avalon and Leva Bates actually argue in this one a little bit. Leva ends up slapping him right across the face, and she leaves. She's upset, and then the Young Bucks finally come out to support their friend Brandon Cutler, and Cutler actually gets the win in this one. The first win in his AEW career, finally snaps that losing streak by defeating Peter Avalon, and the Young Bucks get in the ring and celebrate with him. More tag team action up next as the Best Friends defeat Anthony Bowens and Max Caster. Brian Cage defeated Fuego del Sol. 10 from the Dark Order defeated Sean Maluda. Eva Lise and Diamante defeat Kylie King and Evans. Sonny Kiss defeated Aaron Solo. Will Hobbs defeated Nick Caramondo. And Darby Allin defeated Alex Chamberlain. If you go back in the archives of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, Alex Chamberlain at one time was a guest on 360 Wrestling Fanatic. It was a very good interview. If you have not heard that, should look it up, give it a listen. Good interview. Alex Chamberlain at the time was part of a promotion, Paragon Pro Wrestling, which is no longer around, unfortunately. But I recommend just give it a listen. And now Impact Wrestling. I know normally in the recent weeks I haven't been talking about the whole episode of Impact Wrestling because Dark has been so long. But for about the first hour or a little more, I was actually watching both shows at the same time. So tonight I have recaps of both Impact and Dark. Already talked about Dark though, but now let's move on to Impact. And we start off in the back actually. The former world champion attacking the new Impact world champion, Rich Swann, and they brought out to the ring. And Young demands a rematch. Scott D'Amore comes out. He actually grants him that rematch. And we start off big world championship rematch from Bound for Glory. Eric Young taking on Rich Swann. This one doesn't last long though. Kind of a short match. Swann retains. And Hardcore Halloween match. We see Brian Myers versus Tommy Dreamer. And this one we of course see a lot of weapons. We see candy corn. We see thumbtacks. We see Hornswoggle get involved. Tommy Dreamer, Death Valley Driver for the win as he pins Brian Myers. Tag team action up next now. Triple XL taking on the Rascals. And Larry D pins Trey Miguel for the win. And Diana Perrazzo has a lawyer, and he tells Scott D'Amore to strip Sue Young of the Knockouts Championship, where she will sue Impact Wrestling. And but Scott D'Amore doesn't back down. He talks about how it could last years or months, whatever, and then so there's no lawsuit, but he does make a rematch for next week. Once again, the Knockouts Championship will be on the line as Deonna Purrazzo challenges the new champion, Sue Young, for the Knockouts Championship. If it's anything like the match they had at Bound for Glory it should be a very good match. We'll just have to wait and see. Next Tuesday night, Bound for Glory, Impact Wrestling, the Bound for Glory rematch. Excuse me, easy for me to say. Let's talk about a little bit of news. Apparently, WWE has changed up Matt Riddle's name a little bit. I guess they're dropping the Matt. Now he's just Riddle. He has no problem with it, though. I saw that he posted on his social media that his documentary series coming to Netflix. That should be very interesting to say the least. I don't know if it's going to be anything like the documentary WWE put out on the DVD quite a few years back, but definitely be interesting to watch. So if you have Netflix, the Vince McMahon documentary, I'm sure you'll definitely want to check that out. And Halloween Havoc, let's get back to that. Actually won in the ratings for NXT against Dynamite. I don't know why. Well, actually, I didn't talk about. Forgot about that. I did not talk about Halloween Havoc and Dynamite like I was going to. Old age kicking in. Well, I'll get to that after the news. But I don't know why, though. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about it. I think I'll just wait till I recap both of the shows. And there's interest from WWE in former NWA Women's Champion Thunder Rosa. And now let's get back to two shows I was going to recap, but forgot, like I said, old age. Dynamite last night, we had got an interview with MJF and Wardlow in the back. Sammy Guevara shows, and he says he will make sure that MJF does not join the inner circle. And Wardlow is in action next in the World Title Eliminator Tournament. He is taking on Hangman Adam Page to start off Dynamite, the in-ring action. Page advances in the tournament. And next up, Eddie Kingston, the number one contender for the AEW World Championship, is taking on Matt Sydal. Kingston gets to win via submission. Chokes him out. Sydal loses conscience. And Kingston, calls him Moxley, actually. And he forces him to say, I quit. Just like he says he will make Jon Moxley quit at Full Gear. And Alex, easy for me to say, Excalibur is back with the Young Bucks, and we see FTR also in a different location with their manager, Tully Blanchard. And FTR gets upset because Excalibur is talking more to the Bucks, and they leave. And the Bucks announce that if they do not beat FTR for the World Tag Team Championships at Full Gear, they will never challenge for the titles again. So this is similar to what happened at last year's Full Gear, where Cody faced Chris Jericho in the main event and said if he does not defeat Jericho, he will never challenge for the AEW World Championship. They've kept that step up so far, unlike some promotions. Sometimes they have a step like that, then they go back on it. Now it is time for the town hall meeting to determine if MJF will challenge the inner circle. First off, we got a question from Luchasaurus, and it's about how he will help the inner circle make money or something like that. And then he shows them the profit margin and thing pre MJF and post MJF. Of course, the post MJF way up high. And we also got questions from Britt Baker and Reba. Peter Avalon, he asks if he can join the inner circle. Jericho says no chance. And we have another appearance from Eric Bischoff here. He asks a few questions, and then Jericho says they will have a match one-on-one, Chris Jericho versus MJF November 7th at Full Gear. If MJF wins, he will be a member of the inner circle. Should be interesting. I think MJF's going to win, be joining the inner circle in this one. What do you think is going to happen in this match? Who do you think is going to win? Do you think Jericho's going to win? Do you think MJF will be an official member of the inner circle? Comment below on YouTube, or if any of the podcatchers we're on has a comment section, you can leave a comment there. And the TNT Championship match, Lumberjack match, is next. Orange Cassidy versus Cody. The Dark Order once again end up getting involved. John Silver interferes, attacks Orange Cassidy. Cody doesn't see it though. He picks up the win, retain the TNT Championship, and we find out Orange Cassidy will go one-on-one with John Silver at Full Gear November 7th on pay-per-view, a week from this Saturday. And the NWA Women's Championship is on the line. The new champion, Serena Deeb, takes on Layla Hirsch. Fantastic match. In my opinion, this is definitely one of the matches. If you missed Dynamite for some reason, if you can't watch the full show for some reason, which you should, but if you only watch one match, make it this one. My opinion, match of the night. And Serena Deeb picks up the win to retain the championship. Hikaru Shida says she will give Nyla Rose a shot at the AEW Women's Championship at Full Gear. Shawn Spears defeats VSK. And then there's somebody in a bull costume ringside heckling Spears. Spears goes out to attack them, drags them into the ring, and it's none other than Scorpio Sky. And the World Title Eliminator match is up next to determine who's going to face Hangman Adam Page in the finals. Penta El Zero taking on Kenny Omega. And no surprise in this one, really. It's Kenny Omega getting the win. And honestly, it was kind of predictable what the finals were going to end up being. I'm sure most people expected it to be Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. And no surprise to anybody, I don't think. That's the finals we're seeing to determine the number one contender for the AEW World Championship. Full Gear, November 7th. This has been building for a while. Like I said, it was predictable that it would probably be Page and Omega in the finals to determine the number one contender in this tournament. And predictable is not always a bad thing, though. I'm sure they will have a great match, tear the house down at Full Gear November 7th on pay-per-view. And that's all for this episode of 360 Wrestling Fanatic. Hope everyone has had a great week of wrestling. And thanks again for tuning in. And one still trying to hope one day can maybe find a podcast or sorry, I need to learn to talk too. But also I'm trying to find a co-host for 360 Wrestling Fanatic. If you're interested, 360 Wrestling Podcast at gmail.com. The email's in the description of this stream on YouTube. Or if you're listening to the audio podcast, 360 Wrestling Podcast at gmail.com. If anybody's interested. Also, if anybody's interested in sponsoring, being a sponsor, if you have a product or anything you want to advertise right here on the 360 Wrestling Podcast, the email 360 Wrestling Podcast at gmail.com. That's probably the best way. Or you can leave a comment here on YouTube or any of the podcatchers, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of those. But like I said, email is probably the best way. 360 Wrestling Podcast at gmail.com. If you want to advertise here on 360 Wrestling Fanatic, that'd be great. Until then, till next time, I should say, hopes everybody has a good, safe Halloween this weekend in case I don't do another podcast. Maybe I will, but just in case, have a good Halloween. Stay safe. Wear your mask. Use the hand sanitizer. Social distancing, 6 feet. Just stay safe. Have fun trick or treating if you're going out trick or treating or taking your kids out trick or treating. But maybe I'll be back before Halloween, so who knows. But until then, I am Lance, and I am a wrestling fanatic.